So right now, if you apply for a job, there is an 88% chance that a machine is going to read your resume before a human ever even sees it.
Yeah, it's a massive number.
Right, but the crazy part is there's a less than 30% chance that anyone has actually checked if that machine is, secretly discriminating against you.
Exactly.
I mean, imagine you put your absolute all into a job application, you wait weeks, and the only feedback you get is this cold automated rejection email. It's rough.
Oh, it's completely demoralizing, and it's happening to millions of people.
So today we're opening up the black box of AI hiring to understand what is actually happening behind that screen. We're doing a deep dive into this really comprehensive academic article. It's called Human-Centric AI and Employment Equity, Building Fairness into the Future of Work by Dr. Jonathan H. Westover.
It's a fantastic paper. Really gets into the weeds.
Yeah, and the mission of this deep dive is to unpack exactly how artificial intelligence is just like radically reshaping the entire employment life cycle, from who gets hired to who gets fired and who gets promoted.
Because it's not just hiring anymore. It's everything.
Exactly. And we're going to explore the blueprint for making sure this massive technological shift doesn't just, strip away our human agency.
And I think the urgency of this shift, it really cannot be overstated. According to a 2020 survey by the Society for Human Resource Management, a staggering 88% of organizations worldwide are already using AI or automation in some aspect of their HR operations.
Wow. So almost everyone.
Right. We are living in an era where algorithms are dictating career trajectories at scale. I mean, if you've applied for a job or even just worked at a mid to large company in the last few years, a machine learning model has likely evaluated your potential.
Or your flight risk, right?
Oh, absolutely. Your flight risk, your performance, everything.
And the reason these machines are suddenly everywhere, well, it really just comes down to raw, seductive efficiency. I mean, the Deloitte data cited in our source material is the kind of math that just makes corporate executives salivate.
Oh, for sure. The
Yeah.
numbers are undeniable.
Like, utilizing AI can reduce candidate screening time by up to 50% while simultaneously improving candidate quality metrics by 35%.
It's the ultimate corporate dream. You're cutting your hiring time in half and supposedly getting better people.
Right, but adopting this tech purely for speed is kind of like buying a sports car because it goes 200 miles an hour, but you never actually check if it has brakes.
That is a perfect analogy because prioritizing speed and cost reduction, it leaves this massive blind spot when it comes to the actual mechanics of how these decisions are being made.
Yeah, and they aren't consciously trying to be biased, the AI, I mean. It's just reading the manual of past human decisions and executing the rules like a million times faster than a human could.
Yes. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that gap between adoption and auditing creates what we call the black box problem.
Right, the black box.
Basically, a black box AI is a system that ingests massive amounts of data, spits out a decision, but provides absolutely no understandable explanation of how it arrived at that conclusion.
It just says no.
Exactly. And AI doesn't exist in a vacuum. It is a pattern recognition engine, right? It learns from historical data. So if your company's historical hiring data contains human biases,
Like constantly promoting men over women, maybe?
exactly, say, consistently promoting men into senior engineering roles over a 10-year period,
Yeah.
the AI doesn't recognize that as a societal flaw to be corrected. It just encodes that historical bias as a rule for success.
Oh, wow. So it just locks it in.
And then it applies it with ruthless automated efficiency moving forward.
Because the system doesn't know it's being sexist or racist. It just thinks it's optimizing for success based on those flawed past examples.
Right, it's just doing math.
And the text highlights this chilling real-world example of this failing, just like spectacularly. Amazon had to completely scrap this secret AI recruiting tool they spent years developing.
Oh yeah, this is a famous case.
Because the system literally taught itself that male candidates were preferable. It was systematically penalizing resumes that included the word women's, like literally downgrading someone if they were the women's chess club captain.
It's wild to think about.
And it was actively downgrading candidates who graduated from all women's colleges because the AI was just looking at a decade of Amazon's male-dominated tech hires, mapping the vocabulary those men used, and aggressively filtering out anyone who didn't fit that linguistic profile.
And the impact goes way beyond just the text parsed from a resume. The paper cites this landmark study by Bulamwini and Gebru.
Oh, the facial recognition one?
Yes, they examined commercial facial recognition systems and discovered that these systems exhibited significantly higher error rates when trying to analyze the faces of darker-skinned women.
Which is terrifying when you think about how that tech is used now.
Well, exactly. The training data used to build those vision models was overwhelmingly skewed toward lighter-skinned males. So when you translate that technological failure into a modern HR setting,
At remote hiring, right.
right, using AI-enabled identity verification or software that actually analyzes a candidate's facial microexpressions during a video interview.
Well, yeah, they do that. They analyze microexpression.
Oh, yeah. But the software is fundamentally less capable of accurately seeing certain demographics. That creates an immediate systemic disadvantage baked right into the interface.
So this isn't just like an abstract debate for ethicists. It actively destroys companies from the inside out. There's a massive quantifiable business cost to this black box penalty.
Huge costs.
The text points to a 2016 study showing that employees who simply believed that AI-driven promotion decisions were unfair just believed it experienced catastrophic drops in engagement.
Yeah, that perception alone is lethal to morale.
They were 3.5 times more likely to want to quit and significantly less likely to recommend their employer to others.
Because when employees feel subjected to arbitrary, opaque, algorithmic decisions, the result is a profound crisis of trust. You see disengagement, burnout, people quietly quitting.
Right, so those initial efficiency gains like screening resumes 50% faster. They're completely wiped out.
Gone. Wiped out by the financial cost of losing your top talent because those employees feel the system is fundamentally rigged against them.
Okay, so we have this situation where the opaque black box shatters trust and drives away talent. How do organizations actually get out of this efficiency trap?
Well, this requires pivoting away from the code itself and looking at the psychological realities of what makes humans feel valued at work. Because, getting rejected is a part of life.
Sure.
But the way you get rejected matters immensely.
Right, exactly.
The foundation of this is a concept from organizational psychology called procedural justice. Research by Colquitt and others demonstrates that human beings don't just care about the final outcome of a decision, which is distributive justice. We care deeply about the mechanisms and the transparency of how that decision was reached.
That makes total sense. Like, if I get passed over for a promotion, obviously I'll be disappointed. But if the criteria were clear and the process was consistent and I actually had an opportunity to present my case, my psychological need for fairness is largely met.
Precisely. You'll generally accept the outcome.
But if an algorithm just outputs a no and HR can't even explain the parameters of that no, you feel completely cheated. Like, denying someone an explanation strips them of their agency and their dignity in the workplace.
To counteract this, the paper introduces its core thesis, Human-Centric AI, or HCAI.
Okay, let's unpack this. Human-Centric AI.
It's a deliberate paradigm shift in how we build these tools. HCAI means designing and deploying AI systems that prioritize human values, rights, and well-being over purely technical optimization.
So putting people before the math.
Exactly. It demands explainability, procedural justice, and inclusivity. The fundamental premise is that technology should augment human judgment, not just replace it entirely without oversight.
Okay, but let me push back on this for a second. Think about this from your perspective as the applicant. You're sitting alone in your room, talking to a webcam, and a machine is grading you.
Right.
How does that isolated, automated experience ever actually feel human-centric? The text brings up Unilever as a real-world example of this.
Yes, Unilever is a fascinating case study.
Because they use a gamified AI hiring system with machine learning evaluating candidates. And, I mean, to a skeptic, turning job applications into neuroscience games analyzed by a hidden algorithm sounds incredibly dystopian.
It does sound dystopian on the surface. But Unilever's approach counters that feeling through intense, radical transparency.
How so?
Instead of putting candidates through a black box where they just play a game and get a rejection letter, Unilever tells the candidates exactly what cognitive or emotional traits the games are evaluating.
Oh, so they don't hide the ball.
Not at all. Whether it's risk aversion, pattern recognition, or working memory. They explain how the interface measures those specific traits, and, crucially, they explain why those traits matter for the specific role the person is applying for.
So they use plain language disclosure, completely avoiding all that dense technical jargon.
Exactly. They lay it all out.
They're essentially showing their math to the candidate before the assessment even begins. You know the rules of the game before you play it.
And the results of that transparency are just staggering. Unilever regularly audits this system for fairness, and they publish those findings.
Yeah.
Because candidates understand the parameters of the assessment, satisfaction rates skyrocketed.
Wait, really? Even for the people who got rejected?
Yes, over 80% of applicants reported that the process felt fair to them, even if they ultimately didn't get the job. When an organization provides the why behind an automated process, it restores the candidate's sense of procedural justice. The transparency itself acts as the human-centric element.
That is wild. But okay, transparency is an incredibly powerful tool when you're applying for a job and trying to understand the rules. But let's look at the flip side of the employment life cycle.
Okay, the flip side.
If you're currently employed, explaining how an AI just made your specific department obsolete doesn't pay your mortgage.
No, it certainly doesn't.
Like, algorithmic transparency doesn't buy groceries. So we have to pivot from how these systems evaluate us to the very material reality of job displacement.
That's the real elephant in the room. The introduction of AI into the daily workflow fundamentally threatens what organizational behaviorists call the psychological contract.
The psychological contract. Tell me more about that.
It's the unwritten set of rules, expectations, and mutual obligations between a worker and an employer. Historically, that contract dictated that if an employee provided loyalty and hard work, the employer would provide job security and a predictable career path.
And AI essentially just shreds that contract overnight.
Completely shreds it.
Because when an algorithm can suddenly automate half of your daily tasks or entirely replace the function of your department, it triggers a primal survival anxiety.
Of course it does. Your livelihood is on the line.
The implicit agreement of mutual loyalty is violated. Companies can't just offer an apology and an explanation of the algorithm to fix that.
No, words aren't enough at that point. The only way an employer can shut off that fight-or-flight response is by proving they are financially investing in the employee's survival. They have to recalibrate the psychological contract for the modern era.
Right. Putting their money where their algorithms are.
Exactly. And the paper focuses heavily on the concept of inclusive upskilling as the primary mechanism for repairing this trust.
Inclusive upskilling.
Yes, inclusive upskilling ensures that the productivity benefits of AI don't just flow upward to the executives and shareholders, while the workers bear all the risk of displacement.
Because when companies actually pay to train their employees for the AI era, it acts as a massive company-wide anxiety reducer.
It's a game changer for morale.
The paper cites studies showing that employees with positive attitudes toward internal upskilling programs are much more likely to perceive AI-driven workplace changes as equitable.
Because they see a path forward for themselves.
Right. If my employer is actively teaching me how to prompt and manage the AI rather than using the AI to replace my headcount, my entire perspective shifts. The technology becomes a tool I leverage rather than a threat to my livelihood.
This is the essence of building a safety net into the corporate structure. True fairness in the age of automation isn't just about perfectly unbiased algorithms. It is about an employer ensuring their workforce has a financial and educational bridge to survive the transition.
And the scale of some corporate examples in the text is just staggering.
Oh, some companies are really stepping up.
Like AT&T, they launched this massive initiative called the Future Ready program. They realized the telecommunications industry was shifting rapidly toward cloud computing and software-defined networks.
Right, a massive structural shift.
And instead of executing mass layoffs of their legacy workforce and trying to hire a completely new set of engineers, they invested over $1 billion in their own people.
$1 billion. That is a massive commitment.
Isn't that wild? They built a huge internal infrastructure, providing online courses, career counseling, and internal job boards, and successfully transitioned tens of thousands of existing workers into emerging technical roles.
What's fascinating here is we see similarly aggressive approaches globally, particularly in European markets, with stronger labor protections.
Oh, like Siemens.
Yes, Siemens in Germany provides a fascinating case study. For workers in manufacturing facilities undergoing heavy automation, Siemens doesn't just offer severance.
Right, they do so much more.
They offer up to 2 years of wage support, fully funded retraining programs in high-demand technical fields, and priority placement for internal jobs across the wider company.
See, they're treating the employee as a long-term capital investment rather than just a disposable operational expense.
Exactly. It's a total mindset shift.
Providing 2 years of runway instead of a cardboard box is a profound demonstration of procedural justice. It obviously reduces material hardship, but psychologically it signals deep organizational fairness.
But And this is a big, but throwing money at upskilling is only half the battle.
Okay, what's the other half?
Well, if an AT&T employee learns all these new cloud skills, but the AI system reviewing internal transfers is still quietly filtering out older workers based on biased historical data, that safety net has a massive hole in it.
Oh, I see. The algorithm is still secretly acting as a gatekeeper.
Right. We have to look at the source code itself
Yeah.
and how these models are governed. Catching bias after it has ruined someone's career trajectory is entirely too late.
Which moves us from reactive fixes like auditing an algorithm after someone complains to proactive design.
Yes, getting ahead of the problem.
The paper introduces the concept of fairness by design. Instead of building an AI, deploying it into the HR department, and just waiting for the fallout, you build equity into the architecture of the system from day one.
It's treating fairness as a fundamental requirement.
Exactly. You prioritize demographic fairness as a core technical requirement with the exact same rigor that you prioritize data security or processing speed.
And a fascinating technical mechanism the text highlights for achieving this is called counterfactual fairness analysis.
Okay, this part was super cool.
Right. You can think of it as the AI creating a sci-fi alternate reality for every single decision it processes.
Like a parallel universe.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
If the AI is evaluating a candidate's profile, the system is programmed to ask itself, if this exact candidate had a different gender or a different racial background, but all of their actual qualifications, experience, and test scores remained exactly the same, would my mathematical output still give them the exact same score?
So it literally swaps the data point for a protected attribute and runs the entire matrix again.
Precisely. And if the score changes in that alternate reality, the AI flags its own logic as biased before a human ever sees the output.
It isolates those protected attributes to ensure they aren't secretly pulling the strings of the evaluation. That is so smart.
It is. But beyond the technical stress testing of counterfactual analysis, fairness by design requires a fundamental shift in who actually builds these systems.
The humans behind the machine.
Yes, the text is explicit that diversity in design teams is non-negotiable, because it's the only way to reduce the risk of structural blind spots.
Makes sense.
If everyone coding the AI shares the same demographic background, the same educational pedigree, and the same lived experiences, they are significantly less likely to notice when the system is quietly discriminating against a group they don't belong to.
But relying on tech teams to grade their own homework, even diverse tech teams, seems incredibly risky.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Because software engineers are trained to optimize for speed and scale, not necessarily for sociological nuance. I know the text highlighted Microsoft here because they didn't just leave this oversight to the software engineers.
Right. Microsoft is a great example of what paper calls distributed leadership.
They established the Ether Committee, right?
Yes, Ether. It stands for AI and Ethics in Engineering and Research. They brought in lawyers, ethicists, researchers, and external advisors to review these AI projects before they ever deploy.
Because those different disciplines bring entirely different frameworks and priorities to the table. Like, the software engineers ask, can we build this efficiently? The lawyers ask, what is the liability if this goes wrong?
And the ethicists ask the most important question, should we be building this at all?
Right. And IBM provides another strong case study in distributed leadership. They use a multi-tiered AI ethics board that operates independently of product development.
Independent oversight is key.
But more importantly, IBM implemented formal contestability mechanisms.
Yes, this is crucial for the workers.
This means they established a formalized process for employees to challenge or appeal an AI's decision.
Exactly. So if the algorithm flags your internal performance review as declining, and you disagree with the machine's assessment, you aren't just shouting into the void.
You actually have a direct line to a human review board to contest the automated output.
It forces a human back into the loop at the exact moment the machine exerts power over an individual.
And it's not just legacy tech giants implementing these guardrails. Patagonia, the outdoor apparel company, they rolled out AI to optimize their global supply chain and workforce management.
Patagonia is such an interesting use case.
Because rather than imposing the technology top-down from corporate headquarters, they framed the entire deployment around their core values of sustainability and worker well-being.
They actually talk to the people on the floor.
Yeah. During the pilot programs, they actively sought feedback from the frontline factory workers. When the workers told them the AI's scheduling optimizations were creating unpredictable, chaotic shifts, Patagonia actively adjusted the technology based on that human feedback. They built the deployment collaboratively.
Which is the true definition of human-centric AI.
We've covered an incredible amount of ground today. We started with the sheer scale of the shift, an 88% adoption rate driven by the seductive promise of efficiency.
And we looked at the terrifying reality of the black box.
Right, where a hyper-efficient system scales historical bias, filtering out qualified candidates simply because they don't match the demographic patterns of the past.
We saw how the blind pursuit of that optimization just destroys employee trust and shatters the psychological contract between worker and employer.
But we also mapped out the human-centric solution. We've seen that AI in the workplace is not some inevitable runaway train that we just have to stand on the tracks and accept.
The blueprints for fairness really do already exist.
Because whether artificial intelligence becomes a tool that democratizes opportunity, finding hidden talent, removing human prejudice from hiring and upskilling workers, or a weapon that scales bias and alienation is entirely a human choice.
It is entirely up to us.
It comes down to prioritizing Unilever's style of radical transparency so people actually understand the automated decisions affecting their lives. It comes down to inclusive upskilling, like we saw with AT&T and Siemens, providing that massive financial bridge so people aren't left behind.
And inclusive governance, ensuring lawyers, ethicists, and frontline workers all have a seat at the table to audit the algorithms.
Exactly, before they ruin a career.
It is a profound responsibility for any organization deploying these tools. And actually, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, one that pushes just a bit beyond the bounds of Dr. Westover's text.
Okay, let's hear it.
We have spent this deep dive analyzing how humans can build cross-functional committees to audit AI, and how humans can run counterfactual fairness tests to check the math.
Right.
But as these AI systems become exponentially smarter, more complex, and increasingly autonomous, we are rapidly approaching a day where AI might be used to audit and govern itself.
Oh, wow.
If an AI becomes the ultimate judge of its own fairness, evaluating neural networks that are mathematically too complex for a human ethicist or lawyer to even read, well, how do we, the human workers, ever truly know if the black box has actually been opened?
That is a crazy thought.
Or has the machine just gotten incredibly good at telling us exactly what we want to hear?
That is chilling, and definitely something you need to keep an eye on as this technology continues to evolve in your own workplace. Because the next time you get an email that says the algorithm decided, hopefully, thanks to the blueprints we discussed today, there is a human ready to explain exactly why. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.